Whoops. I'm going to start the everybody could just acknowledge that. That would be great. Okay, so welcome everybody from the Senior Center for Excellence. For those that may not know me, my name is Glynis Belec, and I work here and I get the privilege of looking after our Zoom. So we're glad that everybody is with us today. We do put out a newsletter, a monthly newsletter. I know you regulars are probably tired of me saying this, but for our newcomers, it's called The Heart and Soul of Wellington, and it does come out every month, and it's free for the asking, of course, so you can let me know or call the office and we'll get you on that list if you would like. What else have I got to say? Not much. Oh, our health and wellness fair is coming up on October the 20th. So if you need a brochure, if you need some information about that, you can contact us. It is in the newsletter. The details are about that. And that's happening October 20th. And it's going to be a great day. It's free admission, over 30 exhibitors and community agency displays. We have a mini market happening, 4 free workshops, a free blood pressure clinic, complimentary bottomless tea and coffee, and then there's muffins and cookies available too, and that's all from 10 to 11 a.m. and then a complimentary lunch for those 55 or better, and free ice cream, and lots happening, and then a few surprises along the way that I think you'll really enjoy. So we're looking forward to that. So we're busy. We're having another meeting this afternoon, so to polish off a few things. So anyway, I am going to introduce you, Ivanka, if you are ready to roll here. So Ivanka was born in Slovenia. Her parents escaped communist Yugoslavia and emigrated to Canada when she was a baby. Her first language was a dialect of Slovenian and Croatian. And then she started kindergarten with no English because obviously your parents spoke that at home, right? And then as a child, she loved to read and write. Mostly she wrote poetry and she read mystery novels, laying her foundation here. She lived up north in Kirkland Lake for a few years, and then she moved to KW, where she attended school from grades 1 to 13. And then she went on to the University of Western Ontario to study French and English literature. And then she earned her teaching degree. She met her husband, Brian, and lived in Elmira for a couple of years before moving to their home in Murfield, where she's been there for, you said, 20 plus years?
It's been 40 plus years.
Oh, 40 years. Oh, yes, it was Salida that was 20. Sorry, 40 plus years. Sorry. And then she retired after 34 years of teaching elementary students in Wellington County. With 2 children grown, Ivanka had time to pursue her childhood dream of becoming a writer. And she began writing poetry as a hobby in the summer of 2018. And then she progressed to short stories and then on to novels. After having many poems and stories published in literary magazines, she began submitting novels to literary agents. And then Joy, I bet you were thrilled when this happened because it's hard for a lot of writers. She signed with her agent at Birch Literary in June 2021. And then even more joy, she received an offer of publication from Level Best Books later that year. Her first book was called The Deadline. That was published in February 2023. And her next book that we're going to be speaking about today too is called Where Is My Husband? I love that title, and is now hot off the press. And it just came out, what, 2 weeks ago?
October 3rd.
So there we go. So yeah, so very new. So definitely hot off the press. And then she has 6 more books under contract. So that's pretty exciting, I think. So we are thrilled to have you with us today.
Well,
so I am going to pull up the PowerPoint. So yeah, go ahead and say a few things if you wish while I
yes, I'd just like to thank you for having me here. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to talking with everyone. Hopefully there'll be some time for you to ask me some questions at the end.
Yes, for sure. Hopefully. And we're hoping that Ivanka also has time to do a couple of readings from both her books. So I'm going to just spotlight you now there. So it's only you that shows up. Okay. In the recording, I mean. Okay. So yes, we said welcome already. So now I want to know, who are you? We kind of like to, if you could tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe a little bit of personal information. I know I've said a little bit in the bio here. And I kind of thought this was cool. Your initials are IF, and all good mystery writers have that what if happening. So I thought that was pretty good segue for you. So if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Ivanka, that would be great.
Well, you've said so much about me already. There's not a lot to tell. It's not very exciting, unfortunately. Yes, my name, it's my married name, Fear, and a lot of people have commented on that on my book covers now, Ivanka Fear, and they're like, that must be a pen name, right? And no, that's actually my name, my married name, and it goes along well with what I write, just coincidentally. Yes, and my initials IF, yes, definitely. If a lot of people have commented on that as well, on my initials. So all the background that you've given about where I'm from and where I've lived, all those places play a prominent place in my writing. I think like most authors, I use experiences that I've had, places that I've lived, events in my life. All those things play a part in my writing. So right from a child, I can't remember the first time when I thought, oh, I want to be a writer. But as far back as I can remember, that was my goal in life, was to someday write a book, be an author. I started with poetry, and then I went to university with the thoughts of being a journalist, actually. Once I began my first year and went on to the university newspaper, I quickly discovered that that wasn't really the kind of writing that I wanted to do. I was more interested in creative writing. So, I enjoyed poetry. As I said, that was my first love. As a child, I loved to read mystery, suspense, gothic, anything along that line, kind of a wide range of mystery, thriller, suspense, which I've continued to do throughout my life, although I have read the classics obviously is what I studied and I love, and a lot of other types of literature. But I think I always keep coming back to the thrillers and the mystery books. So it's yes, it's been my life. My life's dream has been to be a writer, and so now finally at retirement age, I was able to pursue that. I think with life, you get busy, and writing takes so much of your time. You're busy raising your family, you have your home to look after. For me, it was, my education and then my 34 years of teaching. So it wasn't until, and then of course our business, that took a lot of time as well. We have had our business for ever since our children were born, basically. So we've had a busy time. And finally at retirement, my hobby, I didn't, seek out intentionally, oh, I will write now because I have the time, but it just kind of happened. I just came up with an idea for a poem. And once that started, it just went from there. That's kind of a bit of how it all started.
What kind of poetry do you write? Free verse or rhyming or a little bit of everything? Or what's your
I
passion?
I started with rhyming poetry, and I think that was probably because I had studied the classics. And so a lot of that poetry back then was rhyming, metered rhyming poetry, followed a pattern. But the new poetry now is all basically, prose poetry or free verse. So that's what I have transitioned into writing more so, is something that flows more along the line of a story, or sometimes I'll still put a meter into it, sort of have a rhythm, but I've gotten away from that.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Okay, so we need you to tell us about your two published babies. Did you have a lot of footwork to find a publisher? Like, because it seems like you just fell right in there, and that was wonderful. Yeah, so maybe you could just talk a little bit about the two books right now.
Yes, it's very, very difficult to get published. And I never thought that this would be possible. It's actually my husband who said, after I'd written some poetry, it was personal poetry for me. I was going through a rough time I had lost after retirement, I lost my mom. I was kind of going through a rough time with my kids grown, my writing career, my teaching career over. Things were winding down for me. And so it was a rough time. Then I lost my mom. And so I just started to write some poetry. And from that, I wrote a couple of short stories. And my husband said, you should try to get these published. And I said, no one is interested in reading anything that I have to write. But he insisted that I give it a try. And my first poetry first poetry acceptance was just, I was so excited that somebody, an editor at a magazine, was actually interested in something that I'd written. So that's how it began for me. And that was actually in the summer of 2018 when I'd started to write in June of 2018, my first poem. And my first published piece was November, and then December after that was the next one. And it just continued from there. So that went fairly well. And I had, I've had well over 100 pieces published now in terms of poetry and short stories. Having that success made me think, well, maybe I could write that novel that I've always wanted to write. And so I took a short story that I had written, and from that I wrote a novel. And from that novel came several other novels and so on. So in terms of getting published here and getting that agent, it's quite a process. It's a difficult process, a long process. I had to do a lot of research, first of all, to find out how this all works, because I had no idea. So there's a lot of time spent online just trying to find out, what do I do? And I looked at different options like self-publishing or going to publishers myself or looking for an agent. So I decided that I would try to find an agent. So that meant I had to send query letters to agents and send samples of my work and a short summary. Meant a lot of rejections. Actually, I've had hundreds of rejections. And finally, which wasn't really, it wasn't that long, because it was about 15 months after I had started, I received a phone call from an agent who was interested in my books. First of all, one book and then the other book and so on. And she offered representation. So that was in June of 2021. And then I received the publishing deal with Level Best Books, which is a small US publisher of crime fiction. They're based out of Maryland. And they took on the Dead Lie, which is one of a series of 5 books. And then a few months later, they decided to take on my other book, Where's My Husband, and offered me a 3-book deal with that one. So that's how that came about. And then I also have a contract for audio on both of these 2 books, which I'm not sure when it's coming out, but it will be sometime probably within the next several months. Probably.
Right, that's exciting. The covers are good on here. Did they create the covers? Did you have some help with the covers, or did they did you have some input to the covers, or did they just say this is the cover?
My editor, what they do is they send you a form to fill out with ideas of things that you'd like to see in your cover. And then they create 3 covers, and then I get to choose out of that. So they're pretty good, because I hear that a lot of larger publishers don't give you those options. But with my smaller publisher, they let me have a bit of input, but they created the covers, and it was my choice of the 3, which one I wanted to have out of the ideas I'd submitted to them.
Good. Well, that's nice. It looks like you made some good choices there. Whoops. Okay, so 5 W's of journalism. Of course, you know those and the how. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your writing journey, what your inspiration is, who your audience is, where you like to write, why you like to write, and maybe a bit more. Just kind of cover a little bit of this if you can, please.
Well, as I said, it was my husband who got me started with the submitting of the poetry and stories to publications. And he's the one who has been involved in being my, I guess you'd call it my alpha reader, which is the first person who reads my work. So he will read my work and he will give his opinion and his suggestions. And then from there, again, I did a lot of online research, so it was very time consuming to find out, well, what do I do now that I have something written? I have someone who's read it. What do I do next? And from there, I learned that you should have quite a few other people read it first before you submit it anywhere. So I had beta readers people I found online through my reading and writing groups that I was part of, and they would give their opinions and suggestions about my writing. And then I went on to find some critique partners who are other writers, and they will give their suggestions for improvement. So that's how the writing process went, how it evolved. And in terms of what inspires me, it's everyday life. So it's the things that happen to me, things that I hear that happen to other people, things that I read about, or things that I watch on TV or in a show. I have ideas just come to me. I'm not very good with sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to write now and I need to come up with an idea. That just doesn't work for me, this on-demand writing. So I have to be inspired to write something. And that inspiration might come while I'm out for a walk or while I'm doing some chores in the house. It can come from a dream, or just before I go to sleep, or when I first wake up, something will just come to me. And from that idea or spark, then I can write a poem or story or even a novel. The first book that I wrote came from a short story that I'd written, but that short story came from, it was a phone call, but I honestly don't know whether it was an actual morning phone call that I was awakened with this phone call, or whether it was something that I was dreaming. So whether it was a dream or actually a phone call, the phone call was about someone was asking me if I was interested in colored diamonds. I had never heard of colored diamonds before. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Wonder if there's a story in that somewhere. So I looked up online, tried to find information about colored diamonds. Is this a real thing, or did I just dream this up? Right? I had no idea. I found out it was a real thing, and that led me to diamonds and crime and so on. So I thought of a story where colored diamonds would be part of the story, not the whole story, but a small part of it. And I created a character who is a young woman who unwittingly involves herself with a crime family, with a mafia family. And from that short story, then I wrote a follow-up story, and both those stories were published. And I decided there was a lot more to my character's story. So I wrote a novel out of that. So that's how, my ideas come to be. It can be just a little spark, and then it develops into something a little more, and then it grows from there. So the first book then grew into 5 books, a 5-book series. And even at this point, I'm still thinking there's so much more to her story. There's more to her story in her background. There's more to her story going forward. So that's where the novel ideas have come from. My other series, the Where's My Husband book, and the series that is called a Jake and Mallory thriller series, came from me sitting in the parking lot waiting for my husband to come out from work one night. And I think this was it was a few years ago, but it also made me think where he used to work at the warehouse in St. Jacobs, and the huge parking lot there and the huge building. So as I'm waiting, I'm a bit anxious and nervous. So as he didn't come out, I started to wonder, why is he not coming out? What's happened? And so I started going through this scenario of, could this have happened? Could that have happened? And having a wild imagination, of course, I imagined all sorts of crazy things, which I knew weren't true. But, I'm running through these things and I'm thinking, oh, this could be a new book. And with that, I created a character, a young woman who's very anxious and nervous. She's waiting for her husband. This is how it starts. She's waiting for her husband to come out of the park. She's waiting in the parking lot for her husband to come out of work, and he doesn't come out at all. And so then the question is, what's happened to him? Where's my husband? So she's trying to figure out what's going on there. So the ideas come from everyday life, as I said. Also, I use my own background of where I've lived and where I'm from. So in this first book, The Dead Lie, you'll find that my protagonist goes to Croatia. I was born in Slovenia, which is right on the border of Croatia. My relatives are Croatian Slovenian. I don't speak probably very well now, but as a child growing up, I spoke both languages. And I can still understand fairly well both Slovenian and Croatian. So I decided that she would be from Croatia because I've been there and I have some idea of the culture. Also places where I've lived. In my second book in the series, The Dead Lie, the second one in that series takes place in Northern Ontario and Kirkland Lake. And my dad worked there in a mine when I was a child. So I have that as something, again, I had to research, but I did have some understanding of what it's like up north. And of course, locally here, Lake Huron and Goderich are a big part of my Blue Water Mystery series in books 3, 4, and 5. That's where my protagonist lives because I love to spend time there in the summertime. And I have another book, the latest book that I've written, which my agent has out on submission, takes place in Waterloo, the KW area, and Georgian Bay, which I think is a beautiful area to visit. So always places where I've been, something that I know something about, something that's happened to me. That latest story also came from a real life incident where I had a letter come in the mail. And the letter had been sent by my best friend from when we were children, but she'd kept this letter. So decades later, I received a letter in the mail. And my thought was, what if someone received a letter that changed their whole life? And that was the premise of that book. So that's how the writing process has worked for me. So, sorry.
US publisher, Ivanka, they don't mind a Canadian setting because some American publishers do, and they want you to change things. That was never an issue with your publisher?
It has been somewhat. My agent specifically, when she read my first book, she said, London, she said, this sounds like it's in England. So I had that as where my character, she wasn't from there, but it was a place that was in the story quite a bit. So she said, you should change that. So I changed it to, what did I call it? I think I changed it to not Oakville, but something. I changed it to something else, which is a real place, but it's not London because of that. She thought the Americans reading it because she didn't know London. So with big cities like Toronto and Hamilton, I've kept those in. And my publisher has actually not said anything about that. I think they have said there are issues like the spelling, Canadian American spelling. There are issues with things like inches and, kilometers, meters, that sort of thing. Whereas they use, feet and inches and so on. So there's that. And with the places, I think they've been okay, except for when a place comes up like that, where they would associate it with another country. I think most people probably don't know any of the places here in Canada, so it's not really a big issue. And the ones I have mentioned, Toronto and Hamilton, I'm assuming either they know those places or it's not a place that they associate with, like, Britain or someplace else in the world, right?
Yeah, okay. Okay, the library system. It looks like your book is in the library. How exciting is that? Perhaps maybe you could share a little bit about how that made you feel. And also, when they're in the library system, your books aren't selling. How do you feel about that? Are there benefits to having it in the library, even though you're not selling the books? You only sell one however many copies to put in the system.
I'm just excited to have my book out there. So whether it's in online or in a bookstore or in a library, I'm just like, wow, my book's out there. So for me, it's, when I saw this, I knew it was in the Wellington system because I had gone in and asked about it, and they put a couple books in. I noticed when I was looking online, I noticed it was in the Huron County system. And that may have been because I'd been there at the market in Goderich, and some people were asking if it was in the library. So maybe they had gone to their library and requested it be in there. I'm not sure. And this one was in Waterloo. I found online, it's in the Waterloo. I'd looked locally and I found it, it's listed in the Waterloo system. And I don't know why it's in there, whether someone had requested it or if they just thought, this is someone who has been in this area locally, so we'll put the book in. I don't know. But
so do you get royalties from every time it's taken out, right?
Well, yes. So I was saying, in terms of, it's the excitement, first of all. So when I went into Waterloo, I specifically looked for my book and took pictures of it because I was like, every time I see my book somewhere, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So, so there's apparently the there's public lending rights or something. So I had sent in the form for that. You get something back on your book, government, or I'm not sure, but every time it's signed out, you get something back. So I've yet to see what that's going to be. And also, of course, because the libraries, when they buy it, I would get that back in royalty payments. And of course, if people see my book in the library and they enjoy it, I'm hoping that at some point they're going to want to go out and buy the next one, right?
Yeah, that's all good news, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm.
All right. So it's not just about writing the book, though, is it? I mean, most writers who know about writing a book, that's only half of it, just the writing part. So then you have to step out and get your book out there. Perhaps you can address things like this, stepping out and branding, persistence and rewards, and can maybe tell us what's happening in these pictures, because this is you.
Right. So yes, you would think that the hardest part, and it's all hard, there's no easy part here. The hardest part is writing a book, because they say that most people who think that they're going to write a book, very few actually get that book finished. It's quite accomplished just to write a book. So that in itself is tough. And then knowing what to do about it, as I said, it's hard because you have to research and find out, what do I do once I've written something? What do I do with that? So it's quite a process to go through. But the toughest part for me really is the marketing. So now that I have, the first book was out, now the second one, and this is where the real hard work starts. And I find that especially for myself, and I think a lot of writers are like me, where, we're not really comfortable to go out and to promote ourselves, right? To say, oh, look at my book, it's so great. That's just not me. So this is difficult when I go places. And even now when I'm talking about my book, it's a difficult thing for me. So I think that the hardest part of the whole process, even after getting an agent, which is almost impossible, getting a publisher, which is impossible, done all that. And now I feel like I need to start the hard work. So this first picture here was me in New York City. in Manhattan, the International Thriller Writers. That's what the ITW stands for. It's a huge organization of thriller writers. Some very famous writers are part of this group, as well as people like me who are new to writing. So I was very fortunate here. When I joined up, I had heard about this group through another writer who's with my publisher, and she's really recommended being part of this group. So I joined up, and then I applied to be, because my book is, The Dead Lies, my debut novel to 2023, I applied to be part of their debut authors program. And part of that program is they will publish you in their magazine called The Big Thrill. So I've had a couple of feature articles there. They provide a lot of support, but the big event was this event called Thriller Fest, which took place at the beginning of June. So going there, I was invited to go to the debut authors breakfast, which meant that I had to be up on the stage with about a couple dozen of us who were new writers, and we had to give a little speech about ourselves and our book. It was just a minute or two, but it was to a big crowd of hundreds of people, so it was a little bit nerve-wracking. But this has been the most exciting thing that I've done so far. And the next thing there, the next picture there is me in a smaller event. This is at Clifford, and it was the Clifford Country Store. It was for Minto's Culture Days, just about third week of September, just recently. So I read from my books and spoke a little bit about basically just about the books. It was just a very short speech and mainly just reading from the books there. Then the next picture there is me at Indigo. That was the Guelph Indigo. So that was the first time I was at an Indigo. So I went into Guelph and I asked at each of these places, and each of these places are responsible themselves. Each manager is responsible for deciding whether they will have a book event or not. So I went in, found the contacts, who to speak to, and emailed back and forth. And so that was the first chance that I had to get into a store and meet people and sign my book. And so that was great. But it's, sorry?
How are your books then, Indigo?
What was that?
Purchase your books at Indigo?
Are they in Indigo? Sorry, I was just having trouble hearing you, but my books they're online through Indigo, first of all. The Dead Lies there. Where's My Husband is coming. It's not there yet. It's I spoke to them a few days ago, and it takes a while for them to input it into their system, apparently. They'd had quite a problem when the Dead Lie came out. They were hacked, so they had quite a problem then. But now hopefully hopefully Where's My Husband will be in there soon. In terms of getting into the actual bookstores, again, it was someone else. There are different people to speak to do this. So I had to speak to someone else to get my books actually physically into stores. And the person said that they would put it into a few local stores to see how it sold. So it's in Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, Stratford, and Cambridge right now. So that was where I started. And the other picture there is the Waterloo Conestoga Mall one. So those are the only two book signings that I've been to so far. I'm hoping that in the next few weeks I can get, once Where's My Husband is actually physically online, that I can contact a few other Indigo stores and get in there for some signings.
Okay, so now I wonder if you'd like to go into a little bit more detail about what these books are about, like The Dead Lie. Let's begin with that, since that was your debut novel. So, and these are some real reviews that she received that I kind of snitched offline. So I didn't make those up because I haven't read the book. Yeah, I'm going to, but
well, reviews are hard to get for sure. So, everyone is much appreciated. So this book here, The Dead Lie, is actually not my first book. It's my first book published, but it's the fourth book that I wrote. I write in a very scattered way. So the first book I wrote was based on the short story, and the second short story that I wrote about this woman who was unwittingly involved with mafia family. So when I wrote the first novel, then I had, as I said, I had an idea, oh, she has a backstory. She has more going forward. So I wrote the initial story, which is going to be the fourth book in the series. Then I wrote the sequel to that, which will be the fifth book in the series. And then I said to myself, oh, she has a big background that I need to write about. So I went backwards and wrote a prequel to the first book that I wrote. And then I wrote a prequel to that book, which is this one right here. And then I wrote another book, which comes in the middle between the prequels and the sequel and so on. So as I say, my writing just is whatever inspires me, whatever pops into my head at the time, that's what I write. So it's kind of all over the place. But my publisher said, well, it would be best if we do this chronologically. Let's start with the first book chronologically and work our way through. So that's why the fourth book I wrote is actually the first one published. So The Dead Lie takes place 11 years after the initial short story that I wrote. So here, the main character, my protagonist, she's just going on 30. She had a traumatic incident back when she was 18, and she had to go on the run to protect herself and her unborn child. So now 30, at the age of going on 30, she lives up north now. She's moved from Hamilton, which is her hometown, where her parents are, to up north with her husband and her 2 young children. 11 years later, she decides that maybe it's time, it's safe, she can go back home, visit her parents, and get her old life back. So she returns to Hamilton on her own to visit her parents. A lot of mishaps occur. Sorry, I was having trouble hearing there.
I don't think anybody was saying anything.
Okay, all right. Thought someone had something to say there. So everyone's hearing me okay, though?
Yes, we can hear you
Yep.
fine. I can. Everybody's fine.
Sometimes I wonder if I'm talking to myself.
It's okay.
So she returns to Hamilton. She returns to Hamilton, but a series of mishaps occur, and she just puts it down to coincidence at first. Although she's always wondering, is this something to do with my past? What happened to me 11 years ago? And is someone after me for revenge? So when these things happen to her, there's a stranger pops up and seems to always be following her around. And then the unthinkable happens. Her parents are killed in a car accident. So then she's thinking, well, did my parents die because of me? Is this something to do with my past 11 years ago coming back to haunt me? And will they come after me and my children, my husband and my children now? So she needs to find out what's happened to her parents and is there a danger to her family? So to do that, first of all, she's in Hamilton and she's just wondering if it's her. But what she finds out is she's going through her parents' things. She finds out that they weren't who they claimed to be. So they have a past, a history that she was unaware of, the same as she has something traumatic in her past, which she never did share with her parents, but her parents knew that she had to go on the run. So they understood that. And I guess they understood that because they'd been through something similar themselves many years ago. So when she finds out that her parents had lied to her all her life about who they were, she wants to find out, of course, who were they, and find out about their history. And is that the reason why her parents were killed? She doesn't believe it was an accident. She thinks someone was out to get them. So then she goes back to Croatia, finally meets her family there, her grandmother, some uncles and cousins and so on, makes some friends. And so the book is about her finding out her parents' history and learning what does that have to do with their deaths and who was responsible for their deaths. Was it an accident? Was she responsible with her actions 11 years ago? Or was it because of something they had done in the past all those years ago? So that's that book.
Wow, that's a tease. There we go. Okay, where is my husband? This one I'm really intrigued about. So you've told us a little bit, so tell us more.
Well, this one is it's a domestic thriller. And I feel like I need to warn people about this because in the other book, in The Dead Lie, there is a little bit of language. In this one, there's a little bit more. And it comes from, I don't use that loosely, but I do when it's part of my character and the way they talk and the way they behave, I do use that. So the husband here, you'll see 2 points of view, the husband and the wife. So the husband's, when he's speaking, it's a lot different than when the wife is speaking. So this came to be, as I said, from the night when I was waiting for my husband to come out of the parking lot. So that's where the idea came from. And then it developed into, I can make this into a series. More can happen with this. I always have more ideas for my characters, fortunately, so there's never an end to it. So she drives her husband to work. He works a 3 to 11 shift. She drives him, drops him off, which she often does, which I often did as well with my husband when he worked at the warehouse in St. Jacobs. She comes back to pick him up at 11 o'clock. He doesn't come out. She waits. She goes into the warehouse looking for him. He's just not anywhere. She's trying to figure out what's happened to him. So they've been married about 3 years. It's just a young couple. And as in her mind, she's thinking they have the perfect marriage. This is a very happily married couple. She has no idea what could have happened to her husband. But as time goes on, as you read through the book, you'll find that little by little, we find out that the marriage is not so perfect as she claims that it is. And you find out a little bit about their history over the last 4 years that they've known each other, and some of the events that have happened, and things that happen between them and between other people who they're involved with may be the reason why he's missing. The book deals with some very real issues like anxiety. She suffers from anxiety and grief. The husband suffers, excuse me, from addiction, and there's abuse as well in the book. So a lot of real life issues are tackled here. Both my series, both the Blue Water Mystery series, which The Dead Lies, the first one, and this one, which is the Jake and Mallory thriller series, both my series are about the past and the present, how the past affects the present, and the question of redemption. Are people worthy of forgiveness, and do they deserve that? That's a little bit of background on both the books in the series.
Sounds pretty intriguing. An intense psychological journey for sure. All right, so you had all kinds of things. I've been seeing you a lot on Facebook, and that's a good thing, and on social media, and so that's a good way to get yourself out there. And it looks like you are good at self-promotion. I know you said that you don't like it. None of us do like that. I know that's hard. So do you seek out like people to do an article on you, or did they find you? Or, and it's also interesting, like, because it used to be if you had a contract from a traditional publisher, you didn't have to worry too much about the promotions, but now it's so different, isn't it? It used to be like self-publishing was where you had to do all the footwork and what have you, but it seems like you have to do that too, even with a trad publisher, a traditional publisher now too.
Yes, definitely. So that hard work really begins after publication. And I've noticed that it's even with the bigger publishers, if you're with one of the big five, obviously they have a lot more resources in terms of financially, in terms of staff that they have on than a smaller publisher like mine does. My publisher is growing though, so they're kind of small to mid-size. And even if you have a big publisher, though, I've seen writers who I know very well from their books, just from the books that I've read. I see them on social media and interact with them, on Facebook and Instagram and so on. So everyone has to promote now. And that was my thought as, being a self-published author. I didn't think that I would be able to do all the promotion. You have to edit, make your book covers, be responsible for the formatting, and then the self-promotion, so much that you have to do. As a self-published author, I didn't feel that I could do that. And yet, as a traditionally published author, you still have to get out there. All authors are out doing events, whether they're at a bookstore or a library or some bigger venue, conferences, conventions, like the Thriller Fest. I met a lot of really famous authors there. So everyone is out promoting. And yes, I do have to do it myself. So I had to go out, and I will be doing it again with my second book. Go out to the media, to newspapers locally. I reached out to bookstores, Indigo, to smaller bookstores. I reached out to libraries. So locally, those were the things that I did and will do again: libraries, bookstores, and the media. And then online, I spend so much of my time now with social media, my website, hours every day on that, promoting. And besides that, then I have made a lot of connections. Sorry, I'm just trying to look at my notes here as well. I made a lot of connections with other authors, which is important to do. And they set me, give me ideas of here's where you can go to find someone who's a blogger or a reviewer to look over your work and to promote you as well. The Big Thrill magazine, which is part of the International Thriller Writers, have done a couple of features on me. And the Miramichi Reader is another one that I was referred to by another author, another writer. Making connections with other authors. You read each other's books as well, and that's how you get promoted and get reviews from other people as well, which is really good for promotion. I've joined up the Crime Writers of Canada, who've been very good to help with promotion, and Sisters in Crime, locally the Guelph Vocamus Writers Group. So it's a lot of online stuff and a lot of getting out there, actually, which you can't do during COVID, wasn't able to be done. So it was all online. But now it's more so getting out there as well. So it's all done by the author. I think that if I had a bigger publisher, of course, they would arrange these things for me, but I would still have to get out there and do it anyway.
So did your agent and your publisher, whatever, did they look at your following, like your social media following? Because they want you to have that audience, don't they? And was it all this promotional aspect? Was that part of the deal? Like, were you required to do that, or is it just that you want to get out there?
No, they never required anything. They never asked about obviously they see that I'm on social media because they're always liking my posts and sharing my posts and so on. So they know I'm on there. But they never said to me, oh, you need to have 10,000 followers or anything, which of course I don't. But I have heard that people say that. And I think it's maybe more for nonfiction. It could be because they want to make sure that you have an audience and that you have a topic that's of interest to people. And that you know something about your topic and other people realize that they recognize that. So I was never asked even if I was on social media, I was never asked that. I was never told that I needed to promote, except through my agent has just recently said, when she called me, and I spoke to her last night, she actually called me with news about my new audio deal for Where's My Husband. But she has said, well, you need to get out there. When you're in the bookstores, you need to really push. And as I said, for me being a shy introverted person, I don't like to go around and say, hey, would you like to read my book? So, that's difficult, but it is necessary. And it's really my agent who's the one who said to push. My publisher hasn't really required anything of me, but I'm sure that they do have that expectation that they will, they have their own social media, they have their own advertisements, and they have their own newsletters and so on, where they're promoting their authors. But I'm sure that they expect that authors will promote themselves as well.
The more books you sell, the chances are they'll stick with you, and you'll get more contracts.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so you're in a book club. Is this a book club, or did you go visit the book club? And I know all of these people except the one lady at the back, far right next to Anne. So,
Sure. So I'm not part of this book club. I was the guest. I have been part of a book club. It was an online book club during COVID that I was a part of, and I enjoyed that. But once I got really busy with my own writing, editing, and now marketing, I'm just so busy that I really don't have time to be part of a book club. I'm always reading books by other authors who are in my literary agency or with my publisher, or people that I've met online through writing groups. So I'm so busy reading these books, and we review each other's books and so on. So this was just my first time where I was invited, excuse me, to an event, and it was my friend Diane who invited me to her book club. So I was really excited to go there and have my book be the book that was discussed at their book club. So it was my first big event. Sorry?
That's something you're available for if somebody would like you to come to their book club. You would be
yes,
willing to.
Definitely. Absolutely. I do have another one that I've been asked to attend. It's in May, and it's for the retired teachers of Ontario. So that one's coming up. Yes, no, I'd love to come to any book clubs.
If I can say something, I reckon in that picture that was just up, I recognize my sister-in-law in the back right.
Oh, this is the only one I didn't know. Okay, because this is Grace and Anne and Mary and Diane, and then who is this?
That's Kate Delahunty, my sister-in-law.
Oh, there you go. Well, see, good for you.
Sorry for interrupting, but that's Kate.
Share that. All right. So, Ivanka, how successful are you at selling books at outdoor markets? Because I know sometimes they can be frustrating, and it looks like you've been to a few. Do you enjoy them? Again, you're meeting people face to face, so it's kind of a sell. So
yes. Well, I definitely enjoy meeting people. I'm getting a little more used to it. I haven't done a lot. The one on the left is Goderich. I was at the Goderich market twice. I've sold some books. I don't sell a lot of books, but I'm hoping that as I have more, I only have the one book there. So as I have more books come out, I'm hoping people will see there are more choices, and hopefully something will catch their eye. The other picture is the Flamborough Book Fair on the right. So those were, 2 times at Goderich, once at Flamborough. My first market was just locally here in Moorfield at the Maryborough Hall. So I started there, I did these ones, and what else have I done? I have a couple coming up in November, Book Bash in Guelph, and then there's also a market here again in Maryborough, the holiday market. So yeah, it's really interesting to get out there and meet other people. I've also met not only readers and just people who stop by to chat, but I've also met other writers, which is interesting as well. So yeah, so it's great to get out there. But it doesn't sell, I haven't sold like dozens of books at any time. But as I say, hopefully as time goes on and I get a little bit better at promoting myself and having more books to promote, that will grow.
So your name gets out there and people can trust you for a certain style that they want and that kind of thing. So,
right.
So that's a good thing. Okay. So is this Thriller Fest? Is this?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is the big exciting event that I've had so far. So that the person who's introducing everyone there at the podium, that's Lisa Gardner. I don't know if people are familiar with her, but she's a really big famous author in the mystery thriller suspense genre, Lisa Gardner. So I'm in kind of in the center there. And to my right, as I'm looking at myself, there are two authors who I've connected with. The one is Michelle Goddard Richer, and she's from Canada, actually. So so we have now since become online friends and exchanged books and so on for reviews. And the person next to her is Elle Grawl, who's from the States. My daughter, who was with me, was in the audience, and she was sitting with her husband. So they were talking, and that's how I made a connection with her. So she and I also now are friends on, on social media and sharing each other's work and so on. So it was a good place to make connections with other authors who were new. These are all debut authors. There were probably about 12 on that side, 12 on the other side of Lisa there. So about 24, 25 of us all together who were introduced as the new debut authors. In that room, there were probably, I'm going to estimate a couple hundred people. They were readers, writers, agents, publishers, editors, anybody who's interested in the writing of mystery, thriller, anything in that genre, from cozy mystery to, CIA thrillers and so on. So that was a big, exciting 3-day, it was a 3-day event. I wasn't going to go at first. I'd been invited and I declined for many reasons. One is that this is a very expensive event to go to. The other was that I don't like to fly. I was very nervous about the whole thing, about going there. I certainly didn't want to go alone. I knew my husband would. I didn't even ask my husband because I knew he's not keen on traveling, or same going on a plane. Going to the big city for him would not be something that he would be comfortable doing. So I just said, no, I'm not going. And the other reason for that was just my nerves and thinking of, I have to be in front of all these people and give a speech. And I just thought, I can't do that. So I declined. But my brother was the one who said, this is your chance of a lifetime to do something like this. You're not going to get a chance again to be the debut author in a big venue like this, the biggest convention of thriller writers with all these famous authors and so on, to be one of them. So you're going. So I was really thankful that he basically made me go, and he said he would be the one to come with me. He's very familiar with travel. He travels all the time, so it's not a big deal for him to get on a plane. And New York City, he's very familiar with. So I felt more comfortable than knowing that someone who knew what they were doing would be with me. But unfortunately, he had health issues and couldn't come. So my daughter stepped in and said she would come. My husband said he would come, but I thought my daughter was a better match for going on this trip because she's been to New York. She knows her way around. So the two of us went together. So at this event, as I said, I had to give a speech at the debut breakfast. We were introduced to the crowd. We were sitting in the book signing room with all the other famous authors. I actually had Lisa Gardner her table was right next to mine in the book signing room. And the other thing that we did that was really great was the panels where the authors would, famous authors, very famous authors would be asked questions and they would discuss writing. And also there were interviews. So Michael Connolly, don't know if anyone knows him, was one of the people being interviewed. I had a chance to meet and listen to people like Lisa, besides Lisa Gardner, Lisa Unger, Karen Slaughter, Claire McIntosh, Charlene Harris, Heather Graham, Brad Thor, R.L. Stein, and many more famous authors. So it's just a very exciting event.
Oh, it's lovely. Wow, good for you. I'm kind of interested in these dynamics too. This is fairly typical. One fellow and then all these women. Was it the same on the other side too? Like
there were some men on the other side. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't really think of that, but
That's
um,
really.
I don't know. I think what I'm finding is that a lot of the men would write more like legal or medical or CIA, police procedural, that sort of thing. Whereas the women are more writing more cozy, or they might be writing domestic thriller or traditional mystery, that sort of thing. Although there was one woman there who wrote about her experiences being in, I think it was a CIA, and another one, well, Claire McIntosh obviously was a former police officer. So, you know, that's not always the case, but often it's the women who read the domestic thrillers and mystery books, I think. So maybe you see more of them being writers as well.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, Ivanka. And I know that you're going to read for us a little bit, a couple of excerpts from each book. Do we have time? I think we have time to do that. And then maybe we'll have a few minutes for questions too. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I think you're still spotlighted. So, okay. All right. So you can go ahead and share there, Ivanka, if you're ready to.
This is, you're probably not seeing it very well, but this is Where Is My Husband? My latest book, which just came out October 3rd. So I'll just read a little bit from the start of that one. Chapter 1. I'm early, or maybe I'm too late. I've never been good with time. In fact, I almost didn't make it to my own wedding 3 years ago, too busy looking in the mirror to see whether I was presentable enough. But Jake waited for me, handsome as ever, standing tall with that air of calm self-assuredness he exudes. Smiling as I walked down the aisle on my uncle's arm, blue-green eyes sparkling, he winked to let me know everything was perfect as I stressed about tripping over my own 2 feet. Jake's patient manner is one of the things that attracted me in the first place. It's a virtue I lack like so many others. Why I'm thinking about that now is beyond me, just something to pass the time. I could open the paperback mystery I brought, but he'll be out any moment, maybe if I count to 100. And breathe, Mallory, just breathe. Jake's voice whispers in my head. The space surrounding me is dark in spite of the few lampposts that stand guard along the grassy boulevard bordering the country road, their light casting shadows of trees and cars on the parking lot where I sit. A few vehicles have their engines running. Air conditioners fight the heat of the summer evening as their occupants wait for a family member or friend. We're surrounded on 3 sides by the gray cement block building that's home to the auto supply warehouse and the 300 or so employees who, as Jake would say, pretend to work there. Jake works the 3 to 11 shift. He should be coming out anytime. I fix my eyes on the nondescript employee back door and wait. So I don't know if you want to read more of that one, hear more, or I should stop there. Sorry, go ahead. Keep going. My car windows are down, letting in the humidity. Sleeves rolled up, my flowery chiffon blouse hangs loosely over the elastic waistband of bleached denim capris. Jake picked out this blouse for me. It's one of his favorites, and mine, of course. I don't want to run the air conditioning and waste precious gas, but I've got the blowers on full blast, along with the radio, which is tuned to some song about love gone wrong, but it's all hot air. I checked the display on my dash to ground myself, 10:57. Jake will be coming out in a few minutes. I can't wait to see him. Nearly 4 years of being together, and we still can't bear to be apart, even for work. Since I'm off from my kindergarten job during the summer, I have lots of time on my hands. Time to fill. Time to miss my husband. Jake knows how lonely I get without him. He understands I need company. When I dropped him off at work this afternoon, he kissed me goodbye. Have fun. Enjoy your visit with my mom. Thanks, I will. We'll probably binge watch some more of that medical series she likes. Since Jake's mom's retired from nursing last year, she's been filling her time with hobbies. Living alone and being a homebody at heart, she's glad to see visitors, even me. And I'm grateful to spend time with her. After leaving Jake in the warehouse parking lot just before 3 p.m., I drove 10 minutes to the city to spend the rest of the afternoon playing cards with Gloria and sipping iced tea on her shaded veranda, overlooking her gardens and flower beds. Following a delicious dinner of barbecued skewered chicken and baked potatoes, we went inside and spent a couple of hours watching television. It's a routine I follow once a week. Drop off Jake at work, visit his mom, pick up Jake at work, stop at the Frosty Bar for an ice cream treat, drive 20 minutes to our country home where we soak in the hot tub, drink wine coolers, and watch a romantic movie on our outdoor screen before heading to our king-size bed. I love summer Fridays. Right now, though, sitting in the heat of the car and waiting patiently, trying hard not to chew off the tips of my fingernails, watching as the clock clicks over to the 11th hour, I'm more than a little apprehensive. I've been keeping something from my husband, a secret or two. When he finds out, he won't be happy. That's the end of chapter 1.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. I really like the way you use your five senses there, the different senses, and some great images and how the intrigue is building. So good for you. Okay, next one.
You want me to read from the next one?
Sure.
Yeah, The Dead Lie. This is the one that came out end of February. I won't read the whole chapter because it's longer, so I'll just read a little bit. Chapter 1, September 29th. There's no way I'm going to tell Jim about this. My husband's face, contorted in anguish, flashed into my mind as I lay on the tracks, the subway train bearing down on me. We'd never had a major argument until last week when I told him I wanted to return to our hometown. Jim insisted it was too dangerous. For the first time in our relationship, he put his foot down and forbade me to go. So, of course, I packed my bags, kissed Jim and the kids goodbye, and embarked on the 7-hour drive to the city of Hamilton, promising to be back in a week. Summer's over. The kids are in school. They can do without me for a few days. I want to sleep in my old room once again, walk around the neighborhood, pretend everything is normal, I had declared. More than that, I needed to see for myself whether there was a bounty on my head. I had lived in limbo for too long. It's been 11 years. If it's not safe now, then when? If Jim found out what happened on the subway, I'd have to acknowledge that he was right, and I had no intention of admitting that. My next door neighbor and best friend from childhood, Haley, had suggested we celebrate my return with a trip to Toronto to attend the Janet Jackson concert. She recalled how I idolized the Jacksons, particularly Michael, during my teenage years. I hadn't been to Toronto since university, and with the thrill of being back, I let down my guard. The morning after the concert, we had plans to shop at the Eaton Center, then sightsee. It happened so quickly I didn't see it coming. Haley and I stood well away from the edge of the tracks, peering down the tunnel, waiting for the train. Haley glanced up at the arrival sign. It should be here in a few minutes. She flicked her long, wavy blonde hair away from her flawless face. Her familiarity with the underground system contrasted sharply with the small-town life I'd experienced the last 11 years. My first time back on the Toronto subway at the age of nearly 30 came close to being my last time doing anything. I hear it. I stepped closer to the warning strip on the platform. People spilled across the tiles, pushing forward, feeding my claustrophobia. We had waited till after 10 o'clock to leave the Royal York Hotel in order to avoid rush hour, but even this level of crowding smothered me. Lana, don't get too close, Haley shouted. It took a few seconds before I realized she was addressing me. My name is Cheryl. Although that's not entirely true. I go by Cheryl now, but my real name is Lana. Svetlana, actually. It's Croatian, a name my parents chose because it means light, and that's what I brought to them when I was born. Until the day I ran away, they doted on me to the point of ridiculousness and seemed convinced that if they took their eyes off me, I'd vanish from the face of the earth. I led a sheltered life until the day that changed everything, with my parents being more than somewhat overprotective. Perhaps that was the curse of being an only child. Haley's warning came moments before someone shoved me closer to the edge. I wobbled back and forth on high heels, scrambling to regain my balance before toppling over onto the tracks. Unlike a cat, I didn't quite land on my feet. I lay on my side, stunned and motionless, pain shooting through my hip and arm. People screamed above the rumble of the train, Haley the loudest, as she frantically gestured for me to get up. They say your life flashes before your eyes when you're about to die. The only thing I saw flashing was the oncoming train and Jim's face. I struggled to get to my feet and I guess I could stop there.
That's great. I loved your hook. What was it? There's no way I'm going to tell Jim about this. I think
Right.
that's something that was good. That's a good way to do that. All right. Well, I am going to change my view here. So does anybody have any questions or comments for Ivanka? Has anybody read any of her books yet? I'm going to buy them. Linda, do you know? Oh, sorry. Sue, Ruth, go ahead. You need to, yeah.
Which one first? Okay. I think Ivanka would be a great candidate for Helen to come to Seniors for Excellence lunch and talk to us.
Okay, well, hey, there you go, Ivanka. That's a good plug. Yeah, I don't know if you know that our seniors do like these dining programs that we spoke of, and we have special guests. So I will put that plug into to Helen. Thank you for that suggestion.
And bring some books.
Oh yeah, definitely bring some books. Doris, did you have a question?
Are your books on Amazon?
Yes, you can go on to Amazon and order books there if you like to go through Amazon. Right now, the deadline is available as well at Indigo Online or the local stores like Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Stratford, and Guelph. But whereas my husband isn't on Indigo yet, but it should be coming up soon. The other place you can go to obviously is just at your favorite bookstore. If you go and ask them if they would order it, it may take a while, and it's up to each individual bookstore owner whether they want to carry it or order it. So definitely Amazon. You can get either book through Amazon.
And Amazon ebooks.
Yes. So for your Kindle,
Perfect.
Personally, I like to read on Kindle. I love to have the actual books, but with my eyesight, I find I can make the print larger on my Kindles or on my iPad. So I like the e-versions.
Me too. I'm guilty.
If people go to your website, Ivanka Fear, IvankaFear.ca, is it?
Yeah, it's www.ivankafear.com.
Okay, and then you got all the links on there too.
Go on there. If you look at the top, you have links to all my social media. You can link to anything on there, find out more about me on my social media, which I invite you to do. And also there are links to buy the books. So last night I was working on it. So it's not, my website's not perfect because I'm always working on it, but you can go on there and find out where the books are available. So basically, as I said, Amazon and Indigo are good places online for either the Kindle or the actual book.
Doris, did you have a question? I saw you unmuted. Doris, did you have a question?
And I was just going to say that I had downloaded the Kindle version and started reading it. Your current one. My husband is. Where is my husband? Yeah, yeah, and it's great. You mentioned that you had written a short story and then later you made it into a novel. Mm-hmm. So had you published the short story first?
I did. Both those short stories that I wrote before the book, where the idea came to me from the dream about colored diamonds. I wrote the story and then I wrote a follow-up story, which was, took place later on. And that's where the first novel, which is coming out, book 4, coming out in 2026, I think, maybe. I think so. 2026. Publishing's a long process. So, when I first looked at my contract and I'm like, 2027, 2028, like, oh, wow, that's a long time in distance, but it's one book a year. So it's a long process to get through the whole series. So the question was about the stories. Yes. So they were both published, actually it's no longer, it was an online magazine called the Scarlet Review, I think. But I think you can still find it there. I'm just not sure exactly. I think maybe if you Google my name, it might come up, or if you go to their website, I think it's Scarlet Review, Scarlet Leaf or Scarlet Review, that it was way back like in 2019, I think, and 2020 maybe. So it's up there somewhere. And again, I didn't know whether my publisher would be too thrilled about me having already published something with these characters and so on. But I think it's just not something that's widely available, so I don't think it was really a problem. But the story has changed then. Anyway.
Yeah, that's the part I was wondering about it. Is there any issue with using something that you've already published? So I guess not, because it's your material.
That was mine. They didn't ask me about it, but there's in my contract, it does state that if I write anything using my settings, using, whatever's under contract, my settings, my characters, anything along that line, they have, I can't do that. They have the first rights to that. So my rights to these series it's been sold. So anything that I write along that line is, they get the first right of refusal, which means they can look at it and say, yes, we want this, no one else can have it. Or they can look at it and say, we're not interested anymore. Like if the books aren't selling, obviously they're going to say, we're not interested in hearing any more about these characters. And then it's open to me trying somewhere else. But with those short stories, they had been already published. And as I said, I've changed things quite a bit from then. So it's not really like it's not really a continuation of that. It was based on that, and there's some of that has actually happened in the books, but I don't think they're even aware that these stories out there. So I don't know that nobody said anything.
Right.
Good. Okay. Anybody else before we say our farewells here? I see time's getting on. Okay, Ivanka, this has been really interesting. Thank you. And all the best with your promotions and the selling of your books and the writing and the editing and everything else that is involved. So thanks for taking the time for sharing with us today. So our next session, in keeping with this week's theme on words, you maybe have noticed in the newsletter that we said to be announced because somebody had to back out last minute because she had surgery or whatever. But so as per usual, we depended on our lovely Willow Wick to step in. And so she's going to be filling in. She's going to be speaking on poetry with flair. But anyway, we're trying to decide what to call it. For the love of poetry, or maybe I hate poetry. Sorry, not Ivanka, no offense. But you need to come in and find out why we were battling with those titles. And if anyone remembers having to memorize poetry back in the day, you just might appreciate Willa's unique presentation. So watch for that promotion, and hopefully you'll be able to join us on Thursday. So again, thanks Ivanka. Thanks everybody for joining in. And I don't know, it's getting chilly out there, so go get a quick breath of fresh air. So thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Ivanka.
Thank you.
Bye.